So here we are, getting close to the end of the day. We have a fun panel who's going to talk about some interesting things. I'm Joe Mediati. I'm the head of the social media track. I was the lucky guy to put together all the social panels and social members. I'm the founder and president of a company called Webosity here in Atlanta. But again, not enough about me. We want to talk about the panel and the members. But the head of our panel is Danica, and she's the CEO of Everywhere Agency. She's one of Atlanta's leading social media and contact marketing firms. She's been around about 7 years in her business, and she's a force in Atlanta social media. In fact, she was one of the founding committee members who helped launch SuperNova South, which back then was called Digital Atlanta. Danica is well-known social media, and she's an influencer in marketing, and especially marketing here around town in Atlanta. Her agency has built an influence network of roughly 2,000 bloggers. It's called Everywhere Society. Everywhere Society is an influence network made up of top bloggers, Instagrammers, YouTubers, Vines, and they power the agency's many award-winning campaigns. But more importantly, before getting into social media, she was one of the major PR executives and Media Pro, working at little name shows like Saturday Night Live and Sesame Street. She did bring a little character she may bring out later from Sesame Street, but we're yet, it's yet to be seen. She's leading a very dynamic panel today. She's leading a very dynamic panel today, and she'll introduce the panel for you. But I think this is going to be a really exciting and fun session. Danica.
Thanks, Joe. Well, welcome everybody, and it's great to see some friends in the neighborhood. So today we're talking about influencer marketing. So it used to be that consumers made purchasing decisions based on advertising. Those days are over, right, people? Because today consumers are basing their decisions on word of mouth. And that word of mouth is coming via social media. Google recently reported that the term influencer marketing is a breakout term, meaning the keyword is experiencing a growth of more than 5,000%. And based on the phone calls I'm getting at my agency, looking for influencer marketing, that is indeed true. My panel that I've handpicked has tremendous experience in this arena, so I'm going to turn it over to them to enlighten us. To me, the best panel is one where I just say, go talk. And trust me, these three can talk. So let me introduce my panel. First off, round of applause for Troy, who came in the rain. He was on a conference call like 7 minutes ago and he made it here. But Troy is a much heralded new media exec. Right now his perch is MSLGROUP, where he works with brands like Comcast, Home Depot, and a bunch of others. Troy is really our resident digital dude in Atlanta. Anything digital, he knows it. He's been there on the ground floor. He's literally received about every award known to mankind. He's worked with about every big brand known to mankind, you name it. Starbucks, Verizon, Ford, there's like 79 others, right? And if that doesn't intimidate you enough, he's a graduate of the Wharton School of Business. So next is Lina Skandalakis. Lina is the senior digital account executive at Everywhere Agency, so we work together. She too works with little brands like Macy's, Cox Communications, High Museum of Art. Oh, actually one of Lina's claim to fame is she comes from a big medical family in Atlanta, and her grandfather's bust is somewhere in this building. We haven't found it yet, but we heard it's here. Dr. Skandalakis. Lina knows influencer marketing like nobody's business through her work with Everywhere Society, our nearly 2,000 blogger network. And she's a grad of Georgia Tech right around the corner. So when I got here, I was like, where do I park? And she actually helped Troy get here. So thank you, Lina. And Alexis Davis-Smith is my new BFF, right? We're like twins separated at birth. She's the pres of Precise Communications, Precise Communications. Isn't that a great name for a company? Precise has offices here in Atlanta and Miami. And she too works with some little consumer brands like Coca-Cola, Toyota, and others. She also has won beaucoup PR awards, and she's the current president of the Black Public Relations Society of Atlanta. So there's not three better people in town to talk about influencer marketing today. So I'm going to start with just talking about the word. We used to say bloggers. I know, Alexis, you got those phone calls. I want those bloggers, those mommy bloggers. But now we use the term influencer. It seems that today everyone is wanting bloggers or influencers. Any one of you, talk to me about that. What are you hearing on the street?
Well, Danica, good afternoon, everyone. If you've been in the public relations and marketing industry, as I have for more than 20 years, the way that we do things has definitely changed. And Danica, as you were talking about the power of word of mouth, that's something we have been talking about over the last 20 years, but how people receive information and how people share information is very different. When it comes to public relations, we always knew that third-party endorsements really help to sell products as opposed to people just believing what's in an ad. But now with influencer marketing, you have all of these, what we call new media and new journalists who go out and write about products. And because it's coming from more of an authentic place and more of a personal experience, consumers are really buying into it. And what happens is they find these bloggers or these social media influencers that typically they can relate to. So if they come out and they're talking about a new product that they just love and they have to try and they encourage you to try it, it definitely has great impact. So the way that we approach communications has definitely changed. So the influencers just aren't traditional media anymore. It is these bloggers.
And on top of that, they're not all necessarily bloggers. That's why we call them influencers now, because they have influence over a specific community on a specific platform. So they may have a blog, but they may also be very well-rounded and have a really high Twitter following or a Vine following or Instagram. So it's more than just a blog. A blog is a great editorial place, but they're spreading out their digital ecosystem.
I think to add on that, that's a fabulous point. I myself am not interested in just solely a blogger, nor am I interested in just somebody who has a particular amount of numbers on a social platform. I'm interested in a content creator who has a sphere of influence across all of those platforms, because I'm interested in tapping into the capacity that they've created and the inventory or cachet that they've created across all of those platforms, and their ability to create content across all those platforms that I can then either co-create content with them or for them, and then take them and use them as a distribution platform for either a brand or a service, and then syndicate that content and then amplify that content and leverage the fact that they have infrastructure and they've built some type of following that we can leverage and then amplify.
Don't you love that? Content creator with spirit of influence. I think you might have to trademark that. So then I think what you're saying, when you're picking influencers, what's most important to you? Is it page views? Is it content? What are you looking for when you're picking influencers?
I can speak specifically to me. We leverage a specific amount of data. So I am not a PR person at heart. I am a actually digital telecom baby at heart. So that my Boston accent just came out there a little bit. So in looking at influencers, we really use a lot of enterprise level tools, but we use a lot of data. And I'm looking at what we call not only first order network reach, but it's kind of like, and I'm going to date myself, if you guys remember the old Gina Tay commercials, it's like, and so on and so on and so on. But we look at your first order network, which means their level of reach to their first order network of followers. But then we look at their capacity and the reach of their messaging to the second order network of followers, so their followers. But then we go even to the third order network and see how deep their level of messaging goes, leveraging specific tools to see how far their messaging and their reach can go, and what is the real capacity of their reach across all of the channels. So I can list probably 10 different channels that we look at, and then not just their blog, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but I can go into Reddit and I can go into Tumblr and so forth and so on. I can list 5, 6, half a dozen more, but I'm looking to see what their first, second, third order network capacity and reach is, in terms of our interest in them for a specific brand and on a certain topic, so that we can then find out if we're interested in working with them for a specific brand.
Be careful what you say, folks, because obviously he's watching.
So I'm going to play off of that and talk about how you can't necessarily get to the second and third order there unless your first order has engagement. And so while, they may have the reach and their second order may have the reach, they really need to have a community who is engaged with what they're saying. So they like their posts, they comment on their posts, things along those lines. So they're really paying attention. They're not just seeing the message. They're participating in the conversation.
So, Lena, you're looking beyond just numbers and really kind of the meat of their conversations that they're having.
That, and then on top of that, we also look for reliability. So that's something, we've built this community of bloggers and influencers, and we know who has flaked and who hasn't. And if they've flaked, sorry, you might not get picked for the next campaign. So we really look for people, and then on top of that, the quality of their content. So how well they write content and whether or not they can follow a story architecture that we put together for them and make it appear genuine to their following, or if they're just regurgitating a press release. We don't want that latter one.
Alexis?
I was going to say, and really this reinforces what they're saying, but really it's about relevance and influence for our clients. And different clients vary on what they want. Our biggest client is Toyota, and we specialize in multicultural outreach for them. And one of the things that sometimes we have to say to them is, they might not, some of the social media influencers that we reach out to, particularly bloggers, might not have the numbers that they're used to seeing with, let's say, general market or mainstream numbers, but we are looking at the content. Is it relevant to what we're talking about? We're looking at the reach, and as you mentioned, consumer engagement and influence. So those are some of the things that we look for. And again, quality is huge. And we look for influencers that we can build relationships with. So sometimes they might not have a number that is high to what the client's criteria is, but if we see potential in them, we really try to get in with them on the ground level and start supporting them so that they will continue to support our brand as the relationship goes.
Well, Lord knows we've all seen influencers with incredible numbers and lousy content, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Troy?
I think you raise a fabulous point as well. Is we can see, I call them content creators at this point, who may be very niche, who may not have a great quote unquote following, but as I said, when we look at first, second, third order network, their reach is strong in terms of the people that they are reaching. And in knowing that, when you present them to a potential client, they may go, well, why are you presenting them to me? And I'll present a couple of examples, not necessarily even posts, but they may be a strong Vine video creator. They may have great imagery because they could be a budding photographer. But I'll then take that post and say, look, this content for you is immeasurable. It's phenomenal. Look at what it can do for you as a brand, knowing that we can then take that and then we can then syndicate that with the tools that we have and get that to major third-party publisher websites, and then wrap A/B testing and other bylines around that content so that it could be a great byline and people click on that and then take them to that great content that content creator is then creating on behalf of that brand. So I think that, to your point, it's all about the level of content that they can create, not about the numbers.
So talk to us about the world of pay-to-play. So I know we all collectively hire bloggers. Yes, we pay them, we pay influencers, and I still have brands, I don't know if you do, that get frustrated by that, and they say, well, I don't pay journalists, why should I pay them? So how do you determine the value? How do you prove the worth, the ROI? How do you kind of get buy-in on all of that?
So first off, I'm going to start with a little anecdote that I picked up from another panel I was on at a conference called Tech Munch. And this blogger that I was working with was offered a washing machine in exchange for her post. And, it's a very expensive, nice washing machine. And, so it's very valuable, hundreds of dollars. And something that she had to think about was, okay, if she's given this washing machine, because of the amount of money it costs, she's going to have to pay taxes on that. And so if they're not compensating her any money on top of the washing machine that she's going to be writing the post about, it's going to end up costing her money to do this work. So that's something that a brand has to really consider before they start, negotiating with these influencers. So that's one thing to consider. Secondly, you have to consider how much you're asking them to do. If you're asking them to do video work, that's going to be a lot more expensive than writing a tweet. Or if you're having them create their own content as opposed to supplying them with content, that's also going to be a lot more work. How long is the blog post you're expecting them to write? All of this goes into deciding how much you're willing to pay them. So things to consider, and also their numbers. If they have a higher reach, they're going to be a bit more expensive than somebody, who may have a good small community, but not necessarily the same numbers as somebody who reaches nationwide.
And you bring up an interesting point, which is that with influencers, you're asking them to do something. With journalists, you're hoping they do something. You can't say to a journalist, hey, dude, write this tweet for me, right?
Absolutely. I think I'll take it even a step further. With most of the brands that I'm dealing with now, I'm suggesting that they get into a long-term relationship with these content creators, which is also much different than hoping that a journalist do a story on you. So if I'm bringing a set of influencers or content creator to a brand, I'm saying this needs to be a 30, 60, 90 day, sometimes half a year, sometimes full year relationship with this content creator that will work in accordance with you throughout the promotional roadmap for the brand.
So I presume you're asking them to sign non-competes too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's a level of relationship that they're getting into with this brand to create a story arc and ongoing content with the brand for a long period of time. So it is much different than just saying, so we're changing the paradigm. We have to educate the brands in terms of, hey, I'm not just asking this blogger, if you will, to do a one-off post for you, which is something that you'd be asking, hoping that a journalist would do a story for your brand. This is a much different dynamic.
How about you, Alexis? What do you
all
see?
hear me? Okay. That's one thing, Troy, you hit a good point, because I just remember maybe 3-4 years ago where I had clients who were adamant, we are not going to do pay for play. We're not going to do it. And it's because they didn't get it. They didn't understand the transitioning. And I have to admit, we even have people on our team like, I don't get these bloggers. Why do we have to pay them? Why are they asking for money? And, what we started doing was we started having bloggers and social media influencers in to talk to our team about how it works. And we started sharing that information with our clients to help make our point stronger so that they knew that, it was directly coming from the horse's mouth. But what we've seen happen as we get more and more into digital marketing, clients are getting it. I remember when there was a time where they asked for a media list and they wanted to see, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all the major national outlets. Now they want to see the top 20 mommy bloggers. Mm-hmm. And so it is very, very different. So once we explain to them how it works, they get it. But we have worked in a capacity of doing both. We've offered everything from, meeting their cash requirements to giving them products for free or experiences or gift cards. We really do try to find a way to work with them, but also we often use as a carrot giving them something, but giving them something to give their followers as well. And that seems to work really well.
Well, I think we have to, and your point is spot on, but I think if we bring it back to the top of your conversation, when we talk about word of mouth, this is digitizing word of mouth, and word of mouth is based upon these followers and their community's belief and trust in these content creators. Well, if we're getting into a scenario where all of a sudden these content creators are always doing this one-off post here for this brand, and a one-off post here for that brand, and a one-off post here for that brand, they know that they're only paid for play folks, and they lose credibility in the content creator that they've become. So it behooves them as content creators who are strong at video, Vine, Instagram, what have you, to get into relationships and to begin to create a business for themselves, but also to create content for one brand on an ongoing basis, because then it becomes very clandestine and very organic and very natural to the communities that they're communicating with on an ongoing basis. You know what I mean? So if it's just a one-off ongoing basis all the time, they will no longer have credibility and their business will go away. So if they're not doing that, they need to be compensated in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to delve into a little bit of what Alexis said about kind of justifying it and explaining it to the client as to why you would want to. So if you open up a magazine and you are going through it and you see one of those pages that says, like, this is an advertisement in really small words, that's kind of the same thing as what we're trying to do with influencers. And, on top of that, the fact that, they're not journalists, they're not being paid by some outside force, by some outside company. This is their livelihood. It's an advertorial on their site. So that's something that the brands need to kind of wrap their head around, and you can use those examples when talking to your clients to explain to them, this is actually what you're going to be doing. You're like taking out an ad in a magazine.
Which actually brings me to FTC guidelines,
Yes.
which govern everything we do with influencers. And I know you've all studied those FTC guidelines and tried to read between the lines and make sure we got it right. But let's just talk a little bit about FTC guidelines. Annoying, relief, how are they factoring into what you're doing? And they are beginning to crack down.
Personally, it's a relief for us because it provides us some protection, and it provides our clients protection. And when we explain that to them, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. What she's referring to when she says FTC guidelines, for those of you who don't know, is at the top of a blog post, if they write a blog post, they're supposed to say, this post is sponsored by SuperNova South. However, all thoughts and opinions are my own. And then on every social share that talks about that message or that blog post or whatever product it is that they want to be promoting, it needs to say hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored. Or in a Facebook message, it needs to imply sponsorship in some way, saying, that, I received compensation for this post. So really that provides protection for the brand because the FTC is coming in and cracking down and saying, you need to be letting people know, particularly an example with Lord & Taylor. They got all of these influencers to be posting pictures wearing these dresses, posting pictures of models wearing the dress, and the community just got really upset about it. And while there wasn't a monetary repercussion to that, there is starting to become monetary repercussions. There's really bad things happening to brands when they're not following these FTC guidelines or enforcing them. They need to be asking the influencers to be doing this.
That's one instance when Lord & Taylor doesn't like to be in the New York Times, right?
Exactly.
Alexis, Troy?
No, I think you're spot on. She hit it spot on, and unfortunately, I've seen examples where brands have been fined, and the FTC has come in and they've levied some heavy fines for brands that aren't following the FTC guidelines because it can be misleading. They're saying that some brands are misleading the public in terms of some of the posts and some of the information that they're putting out there, and some folks have been posting without doing that. So I think it's a benefit to both the consumer and to the brand.
The most recent one that I found completely outrageous, I couldn't believe, and it was the pharma industry, which is usually conservative, was the incident of Kim Kardashian posting a picture of her beautifully coiffed with the anti-nausea drug she was taking. No disclosure. I mean, not only was she promoting a drug,
Well, on top of that, not only was the FTC upset, the FDA was upset. So they came from all sides because she wasn't saying, this anti-nausea medicine has these side effects. So really, you need to be disclosing about everything in your marketing, the fact that you were paid, what the side effects are, if it's a medically regulated drug. These are all things that the brand has to think about, and they need to do their due diligence in following up with the influencer. So we could have in our contract, you need to be saying hashtag ad, but if you don't follow up with the influencer, it falls on you.
So where do you find these influencers? Do you just go to the World Wide Web and type in influencer? What do you do?
You can go in and type in bloggers and social media influencers, actually. But we go about it in a couple of different ways in terms of our purposes. Some of it is very old-fashioned, old-school PR. We use a Cision Media database. But one of the things I can say about our team is we always really try to stay up to date and abreast of who the social media influencers are out there. So our team, we are constantly trolling YouTube and Periscope and things like that and looking for media influencers who fit our blog. So a lot of it is just how we consume media. So for us, it's not just about watching the morning news anymore. It's about seeing who's on Facebook, seeing who's on Twitter, and following people and trying to make sure, again, see who fits and who is relevant to our database. But recently, sometimes someone on my team today sent me an article of the top Afro-Latina bloggers. And so it's a lot of media coverage talking about how media is changing and who these influencers are. So we try to stay abreast that way, and then from there really go in and qualify the list to see who would work for us.
Yeah, we were very excited to see Ana Flores, who's one of our favorite Latina bloggers, just got named like top innovator in the U.S. This is a woman who started out just really blogging about raising her daughter speaking Spanish and English, and she's grown this entire platform, and she runs Latina Bloggers Connect. So in my case, I will just say it is personally so fulfilling to see these people have grown their platforms and to be recognized now on a national scale. So Lynna, how do you find them?
So obviously, we first start with our internal society network, Everywhere Society, and these relationships that we've cultivated. They know they're reliable people, but sometimes we need to find, influencers that for a different type of campaign or for a new brand. And what we have, some of them may work, but we need to do a little bit more searching. So we use a piece of software called GroupHigh. And it really is helpful in finding, you can drill down to location, keywords that they use on their blog, minimum or maximum number of social followings. It's pretty cool. You can see their compete.com numbers, although compete.com isn't the standard. You should know that it's a little bit off from Google Analytics. If you can get their actual Google Analytics numbers, then that'll be great. But Compete, I've seen just drastic differences, and they'll send me screenshots. It's just it's absurd. And then on top of that, we'll go old school, and by old school for me, I mean Google, not PR.
Okay, there's a millennial, old school Google, right?
Yeah. I'll type in like Atlanta fashion blogger and like see who comes up, and I'll go through the average, says that people don't go past page 3 of Google. I go to page 30 looking for these people, and then I'll even refine my search, type in more specific things. So, I do all of those things, and then we do a rating system, which I'm sure we can talk about later, but to help figure out who we actually want to use on this particular campaign.
Same thing. Relationships, a significant amount of relationships, but we have a multitude of networks that we tap into, and then enterprise tools, like you said, one of which is GroupHigh, but we use CrowdTap, we use Net Influence, we use Social Bro, we use Social Bakers, and we use Tap Influence. So we leverage a lot of different enterprise level tools to find influencers. There are, again, probably a dozen that we pay for and use across all kind of subjects, geographic areas, and we do a lot of this globally as well for a lot of brands. So we have to have enterprise level tools to search for folks in different regions.
But despite that, you end up with that list. But then still, Troy, you've got to go in. A list is just a list, right?
That's it.
Talk to me about that. What do you do with that list once you get it?
A list is a list, but then you have to cull it down, and it's, as I said, you still have to really dig into the data, mine through the data, mine through their content, find out who they've had previous relationships with, when's the last time they posted potentially with a competitor, look at the quality of their content, all those types of things. So it's a very robust vetting process to find out who's going to work well for your particular brand, for your product, for your service, So, and, whether it's multicultural, AA, Hispanic, Asian, what have you, there are bloggers, there are influencers, content creators in each segment. So there is a significant amount of legwork. So, these, candidly, when it comes to big brands now, these programs aren't necessarily cheap programs anymore, especially when you're doing them at scale.
Hours of work.
And the results that the brands are getting, candidly, are very impactful because we're now tying them. It's not just about, social engagement numbers and reach and comments and shares and clicks. We have the ability now to tie this content to push people down the sales funnel and drive them to sales and show that consumer engagement journey and the purchase path journey.
So I'm so glad you said that, because I think in this digital day and age, everybody's looking for this automated way, like just to get those influencers. And what you're all saying is you've got to drill down, you've got to read the content, you've got to look at their audience and really figure it out from there, right?
I mean, there are tools in the upfront now that are helping, that are, taking away some of the work, but at the end of the day, it's a significant amount of legwork.
And one of the things too, Danica, I'd like to add as well. Danica and I actually met at the Blogalicious conference, what was that, a month ago now? And it is the leading conference for multicultural social media influencers. And so to Troy's point, and even Lena said this, a lot of it too, you can find out a lot of information through relationships, because these social media influencers, they're like small groups of families. And they know each other, and they know each other's work. And if you can find those that lead those organizations, like a Stacey Ferguson who runs Blogalicious, she's a tremendous resource when we have ideas and things that we want to do. Sometimes we call her and say, who would you recommend? And then she offers her own network of social media influencers too that allow us to roll out specific programs and make announcements that will, reach a broader number of social media followers, through these influencers. So I think relationships and relationship building is important, because we've grown our list through recommendations and referrals from other influencers.
The old-fashioned word of mouth.
Yeah, so we do the same, going to these conferences, and the best way to meet the influencers is to sponsor a conference. We bring, I know Alexis has done this with, Toyota and other clients, but, we do the same with Domain Me. In Q1 last year, I was on the road, 7 weekends, going to these conferences, talking with bloggers and influencers and meeting them face to face, asking them about their strengths, what they like to write about, whether or not they're a good fit for our brand. And so meeting them face to face, really helps them put a face to the brand and help them put more trust in the brand, so they're willing to do more for you with the relationship, and just creates this nice bond. And something that also one of our other coworkers does, we all do it a little bit, but shout out to Lindsay in the back. She likes to follow each and every one of our influencers and like and comment on their posts and tweet them and say what's up and how was your kid's birthday, and really create that relationship, because then they go above and beyond for you, because they know that you care about them. It's not just a business relationship. You care about them personally.
Yes, because really they are content producers that are building a media platform, and we are helping them. So I love the fact that you talked about building that personal relationship. Alexis, do you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say we do the same thing. We'll be in meetings and we'll talk about a specific blogger and say, oh, I'm going to call so-and-so today. And I'm like, no, she's in Italy. I saw it on Facebook this morning. It's very, very helpful, but it helps us truly stay in tune with what they're talking about and what their content is about and what they're interested in. And again, they enjoy seeing, what's going on in our personal lives as well. So I think it's such a fun way to do PR and marketing now compared to what we used to do with traditional journalists, because they have their specific, strict guidelines of what you can do, what you can't do, and all of that. So
with working with influencers, we found out that there's no keeping your Facebook private and doing this and that. Like everything, your job is social media, so you should be open to the world. Like, you shouldn't be trying to keep stuff private, because they love to see it. It makes your job easier and better. Embrace that. So.
And by the way, there's a major blogging conference in Atlanta this week. It's called Type A Parent, and it's the largest parenting blogging conference. I don't know if tickets are still available, but that's going on Thursday and Friday, and we're going to be there with a client, and also I'll be leading another panel there with some other folks. So I know each of you have worked on different kinds of campaigns. So I can just, by the way, I'm psychic, and I can tell the audience has questions, so I want to leave time for questions. So kind of person by person, I'd love to just have you briefly talk about a successful influencer campaign that you have done. So Alexis, I'm going to start with you, and I think you're going to talk to us about Toyota.
Yes, so Toyota, fun client, let's go places. I'm sure you've all seen the many commercials. We started working with Toyota almost 3 years ago now, and as I mentioned, one of the things that we are responsible for is building their relationships with multicultural consumers and media influencer groups. And Toyota is the #1 car brand in the world, so globally, but it's also the #1 car brand among African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, and the LGBT audience. But one of the things when people think about Toyota, they don't typically think of Toyota as a sexy car. The words we always hear, it's a quality car, it's a dependable car, it's a reliable car. I can drive this car for 300,000 miles. I can drive it off a bridge and it'll still go. The one word we never really hear is, it's cute, it's sexy, it's sophisticated. Well, for African Americans, we know that it's women that are buying cars. So our strategy was, let's identify a way to align Toyota vehicles with African American women, and let's tie it into lifestyle, fashion, nightlife, and things like that. So what we decided to do was to enter into a partnership with Claire Somers, and Claire is the editor-in-chief of Fashion Bomb Daily, and Fashion Bomb Daily is the #1 website for multicultural fashion globally. She has like 1.4 million visitors. So we reached out to Claire, and what we decided to do was to do a series of videos, and they were all called Let's Go Places with Claire. So what we do with Claire is we put her in a vehicle, and we just go about her everyday life, but during it, she organically talks about the car. Now, organically, yes, we tell her about the car and what the high points are, but then we tell her to get in it and explore it and talk about the things that really resonate with her. So she's done things like taking a girls' road trip, she's done fashion week, she's done interviews with celebrities, and as you see her going about her way, she's getting in and out of the car, there's pans and shots and things like that. And so we leverage her website, and we also leverage her social media platforms. But what we tried to do in addition to that is to also leverage her popularity. This woman, we were surprised of how popular this woman is. Celebrities know her, people run up to her, ask for her autograph. We were like, really? I mean, this woman has taken a blog and created a major brand for herself. VH1 calls her to ask her to provide commentary on pop culture. She's on there talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce. I'm like, are you in their apartment? How do you know these things? So what we did was we created a whole campaign around her. So every time we introduce a new car or we do an update, we put her in the car to showcase it. And again, that's a campaign that's been very successful, and we're entering into our second year with her. So we're going to do more consumer engagement programs, a couple of more videos, and then we're looking to integrate her into other areas of the company and sponsorships and things that people can do, because people have really responded really favorably to it.
Lena?
All right. So I work with Macy's, and particularly with Macy's Culinary Council. And if you don't know this, Macy's is an event-driven company. So they throw so many events to get people to come in stores. So particularly with their Culinary Council, it's a council of 13 of the famous celebrity chefs from around the country. That's Wolfgang Puck, Kat Cora, Rick Bayless, just to name a couple of them. So they have these chefs come in store and do a cooking demo or a Q&A on their new book, and we bring bloggers or influencers to do what we call social local marketing. So we find the influencer who has a really large local community. So we get tons of people applying to these campaigns, who have really big national followings, and then I ask them their local percentage, and it's quite low. It's 1% or less. And compared to a different, blogger influencer who has a higher percentage, very high, numbers in their local community, I would choose that local blogger over the one who has a high national reach, because with Macy's it's all about butts and seats. It's all about getting people to the event, because with the Culinary Council, people are really excited to meet Kat Cora, the first female Iron Chef. So what Macy's does is for $35, if you spend in their home section, you get her cookbook for free, you get a $10 Macy's gift certificate on top of what you just spent, and you get to meet Kat Cora and have a little chat with her and get her autograph. So really it's a way to boost products in store. And I've had even the influencers, they want to come in and they want to meet Kat Cora, and they'll spend their own money. So we pay them to go and to write about it and to build buzz about it, pre-promote the event, but they'll go on their own and spend their own money to go to these things, and just showing how loyal they are to the Macy's brand. And on top of that, Macy's has said that we have increased the number of people at these events by 200%. So really the local bloggers, that community, really drives people to do things, because they invite them to say, the bloggers invite them to come in store with me and do things like that. So come with me, not just, go to this event, you'll have fun. But it's, an interactive thing. Come meet me at this event, we'll go together, we're friends. So
And the
that's something
food and social is powerful, right?
Oh yeah.
So Troy, how about you?
Social gold, food porn. I think a big one for me right now, that actually we just celebrated our year anniversary for this program last Thursday, is a program that we launched for Comcast called The Fast Life with Ty. And it's a huge content marketing program that we've wrapped around a multitude of influencers, but it's a multi-level program in which we actually launched a brand character really from the dust of the earth, if you will. A no-name actor that we launched, and this character's full name is Tyler Ottenberger, but it's about his fast life, so he doesn't even have the time to say his full name, so his name is Ty. He does everything fast, he lives a fast life, and he loves brands like Lamborghini, Minute Rice, and Comcast. So everything he does is fast. All the numbers in his phone are on speed dial. He went to a 4-year college and he graduated in 2 years. So it's all about living a fast, efficient, speedy life. And throughout, his everyday life, we weave in very clandestinely Comcast products and services. So the TV to Go app, the Share app, in which you can stream whatever you're doing throughout your day to another Comcast person's X1 flat screen TV, all those types of things. And within that, we have probably 6 to 8 influencers in the initial 3 cities that we launched in: Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, that we send this actual brand character into each city to create local social content. So he's in the city several times throughout the quarter, co-creating content with these influencers across the 7 channels that we launched The Fast Life with Ty on. So it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, so forth and so on. And it's organic content in which he's talking about his fast, efficient life, but weaving in Comcast products and services. And again, we take the best performing content that perform organically across the channels, and then we amplify those with paid social and content syndication and those types of things. And then we obviously drive folks and do retargeting for actual Comcast products and services. So, the X1, so forth and so on. And that's how we're tying it back to sales.
Yeah, I've actually heard Troy give an entire hour-long presentation on TIE, and it's really fascinating. So thanks for giving us the condensed version. So now I'd like to open it up to the audience. I will come out and bring the, we already have a question, so I'm going to come down. Which talk show host used to run to the audience? I want to be them. Who was it? Oprah? This is going to be my Oprah moment. Okay, sir.
Which tools do you use to provide feedback to your clients in terms of the results you were hoping to achieve?
Which tools do you use to provide feedback to your clients? Oh boy.
So many tools. So we use a combination of Google Analytics, trying to get their actual, unique monthly page views, and then a couple of reporting softwares called Trax, Tracx, as well as Nuvi, Nuvi. Those are our two favorites. And what else? I mean, we've used anything from, Tweet Reach to Topsy. There's a whole plethora of them. I would say go simpler rather than something like Radian 6, because it takes hours and hours of training to figure it out, when there are the same tools out there that can do it in a more user-friendly way.
I'm gonna nerd out. So we use several enterprise tools, but it's really for us when you're getting into kind of sales metrics and those types of things, we kind of tie a lot of the tools that she talked about back into Salesforce and those types of things, obviously. But we leverage like Simply Measured, we leverage Brandwatch, we leverage NetBase. I don't subscribe to Radian 6 because their algorithm is very old and they haven't updated in a long time. I hate to bash, but it's very true.
Bash.
So I have not used Radian 6 in a very long time. We also use Social Bakers. I think I said Simply Measured. And obviously Google Analytics, when we're building websites, responsive design websites or apps, we make sure that we're building GA into the SDKs of whatever we're building so we can report out on traffic and report on the consumer funnel and that kind of stuff. So we're making sure that we're very prescriptive in terms of reporting out on the very hard data for clients because they want to see the ROI of this stuff.
On top of that, super simple, but Bitly, just to track clicks. And also, if you have a service that you're trying to get calls from, I have heard that, Roll Call, I think is the name of the company? No, CallRail, that's it. They're a great company that can provide you different phone numbers for different areas of the digital realm. So if you have a Google ad, you can put the phone number there. If you've got a blog post from a blogger, you can put a different phone number there. And all the phone numbers go to the same place, but the software that CallRail supplies allows you to track where the calls are coming from, so hey, that one came from a billboard, this one came from the blogger, this one came from the Google ad, this one came from Google Maps. So, if you've got a service to call in.
And in all fairness, let's just say this, Troy, that MSL is a global firm. So some of these things he's talking about are expensive. We are a boutique firm, and the things we use are expensive. We have a monthly fee that I could probably live in a McMansion with to some of these services. So.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it depends upon, the type of business that you're doing with the client and how you set up with the scope of work. I've been at MSL for 2.5 years now, and kind of the deal that I did with them was I have my own practice that I folded into MSL Group. And like you guys, my tool budget was very significant. But depending upon the work that you're doing with the client, a lot of that work can be rolled into the scope of work.
Awesome. So I want to give somebody else a chance to ask a question. Okay. Here we go. Can you speak loud, or should I come over to you? Okay.
So paying for gift budgets can be expensive, and there are rules around it. How about sending them gifts?
So we call that surprise and delight, as the word, the industry buzzword, and that's totally fine. If you just send them a gift, ask them for their address, as long as you don't require them to post a certain number of times in exchange for that gift, it's great, do it.
I would say that most influencers I know have had to build their garage because they just get stuff sent to them. So the higher level influencers are not going to get some gift in the mail and write about it. So if you're looking for a high level influencer, Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So with there's this site called Influencer, and they create these boxes called Vox boxes, and they send it out to random people like me. You sign up, and you can add all your social platforms and everything, and it analyzes whether or not you're right for this particular box, and they'll send it to you. And you're supposed to, upon receival of the box, it has a little note card, and it says, please let everybody know when you post about this on social media that you have received this box for free, but your opinions are your own. Now, to say that in a tweet is pretty hard, and most people who do this don't disclose. But as the brand, you just have to ask them to do so. It's kind of hard when you have, when you're an influencer and you're sending out a box to 2,000 people to follow up on every single one of their messages. It's difficult. So as long as you cover your butt by saying, be sure to disclose ahead of time, you should be okay there, even if they don't disclose.
And candidly, when you're talking about gifting with a lot of these folks, more times than not, gifting happens with friendlies who you know you're going to get a post from. More times than not.
So other questions? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, you.
Sorry. So I'm kind of thinking if the national B2C company came to you and they were like, we've heard so much about this, right? We want to do a test. How would you, what do you think ballpark for price range to tell them? Because I think gifting is something that you wouldn't expect to post, right? If you want them to do a post or a series or whatever, they're like, well, you're just going to call your friend, right? And they're just going to post for free. How do you set expectations with your clients if this is now a big issue?
So I'm not sure I got the question. If you're saying somebody comes, is it to justify the benefit or how much does it cost?
I think how much it costs, but with the caveat of they don't understand it at all, right? They just kind of heard, like, what would you do to help a client get budget for these projects?
Okay, that's a good one.
Okay, so first off, I'd start with the budget and line item every single thing that you're going to be doing, with the majority of the costs being around searching and finding the correct influencers. And so you can say everything that we've said, you've got to read through those blogs. You've got to spend the time looking through these softwares, finding them, the hard costs of going through the softwares. And then on top of that, paying the bloggers. I've had several influencers come back to me and say, oh no, sorry, $300 isn't enough. My blog posts are at least $500. Or I had one come to me and say $1,500 is my lowest amount. And then there are ones who go even higher than that, depending on your ask for them. So really, if you want to do some work, try just reaching out to influencers and printing out their emails, showing them to the client, look, this influencer will not do this for less than this amount. And the fact, it's very time intensive for us to go in and find these influencers. And then on top of that, we have to go through all of their posts afterwards to make sure that they're following FTC guidelines, to do our due diligence to, make sure that you're legally safe here. So this is where all the hours are coming in. So maybe if you just create I'm very logical. So if you go step by step, this is where this is going, this is where this is going, percentage-wise, this is how much time it takes. I think that would be the best way. I don't know, anybody else?
I agree with everything you're saying, but I don't do any of that. I won't quote a number. This is the business school person in me. The first question that I'm going to ask the client is, what are your KPIs? What are your goals? What's a win? Define success to me. Because until I know what success is, then I need to understand how I can either beat success, how I can achieve success, or beat success. So once I understand that and know what your KPIs are, then I'm going to go start to do this work. I'm not doing any of that work until I know how I can achieve success. And then once I know what your goals are, I know everything that I need to do as a person who knows how to execute from A to Z, what I need to do to achieve success. and how much it's going to cost me, and which folks I need to go after, whether or not they need to be the 300, 500, 1,500, to 2,500. It could be a $10,000 person that I need to execute over a longer period of time. I don't know any of that until I know what the success measures are. And then I can dictate and tell you and quote what the budget is.
On top of the success metrics, that'll also be where you find out how many influencers you want to engage with. So it could just be one really high level, or if you want to do kind of mid to low tier, you could, do 10 to 50. So it just depends on really what they're looking for, what their goals are for you to build that budget and then justify.
Alexis, anything to add to that?
No, I think Troy hit the nail on the head. When I heard her say range, I hate when clients or prospective clients ask for a range right off the bat. There's just really no safe way to do that until you've done the research to find out what is it that they're looking for in terms of their metrics for success, both quantitative and qualitative, and to give you an opportunity to think about the best approach and the best vehicles to do that. And that number can always, always range. I never let anybody put me in a box or up against the wall to give them a budget immediately. Never.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
We get people coming to us, what's your package? What's your influencer marketing package? And we don't offer packages.
We're not
There
a
is
widget.
no package.
Not a
Every
widget.
single budget that we create is personalized, individualized
Brand
to
new.
the brand.
Every single time.
Because everybody has different expectations, different metrics, different goals. So we don't have a package. I mean, we could potentially give a range, be like, if you want 25 influencers, it's going to cost about this much, but don't hold us to it because,
It really depends on the
Right, it
type
really
of
depends.
influencers you want. And so I think we've got time for about one more question. Okay, so I'm going to pose one to you. So in the world that you're playing in now, ever get any completely outrageous requests from influencers? Nadia told a funny story on you the other day, I heard, where you got on the phone with an influencer was asking for an outrageous amount.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell that story, but you might
I
have
won't,
a good
because I
one.
had to verbally undress that person. Some of these influencers, unfortunately, it's gotten to the point as well with some of these folks where they believe that they're actually celebrities. You can imagine, I won't go any further, but unfortunately, some of them do think that they deserve more because they've got a certain number. And it goes back to the value of what you're getting out of them. Some of these folks' numbers don't dictate what they're asking for because, honestly, some of them don't really know digital, social, or mobile and don't know the value of their tweet, their post, or their content. So because you have a certain linear number of followers, doesn't mean you deserve this amount of money. So we have to deal in this vetting process and this work process, we have to deal with that as well, and dealing with folks that think they deserve more and they really don't.
Divas.
So,
Yeah. So
just say
Thank
that.
you for saying that.
Yeah, there are some divas out there. So I once was asking this influencer. We had a celebrity campaign, and it was to promote, social local campaign to promote this event that the celebrity was going to be at. And I reached out to her. I said, "Would you like to do pre-promotion? And in addition to the pre-promotion, come on site and meet this celebrity. You could do an interview if you want to, but really it's just a perk. You get to meet them, take a picture. You can put the picture up on Twitter, whatever you want." And she responds back to me, "My on-site appearance fee is $200 an hour with a minimum of 3 hours." And my response was, "You're not the celebrity. He's the celebrity." I'm sorry. And it completely, it left a really bad taste in my mouth for working with her in the future, even on just pre-promotions where I don't need her to be on site because she put this front up. And you're definitely going to run into people like this if you're doing influencer marketing. I know Danica has a really great story about how, they were launching a beverage and there was this big opening party and one influencer asked, "So what are you picking me up in a limo?" And they're like, "You can get there yourself, however means you."
I'm just going to say it was a beverage that was being launched for Coca-Cola. We were doing an opening party at Marcus Samuelson's famous Red Rooster restaurant in Harlem when it had just opened. We were going to have a private, moment with Marcus in, a special suite. And the person asked if I was sending a limo to pick him up. So anyway, I won't say what my response was because it's not a polite thing to say. So how about you?
I don't have any really outrageous stories. I mean, we get crazy requests all the time. Are you picking me up? Can I have 5 first class? Can you give me a VIP ticket? It's just, they always ask for more. So I think we've gotten used to it. And then once you give them something, they still want something else.
If you give a mouse a cookie.
Exactly. So we've gotten used to that. But one of the things that has been really interesting for us, particularly on the Toyota brand, when we do, product launches of new cars, a lot of times what we do is we have our events and we do it in media waves. So we have our auto writers, so we know when we speak to them, all they care about is the car. That you don't need to do anything fancy with them. We usually do. But they want to eat, and they want to see the car, and they want to hear about the car. Bloggers, they want to be taken out to dinner, they want a tour of the town, what's in your bag, what are you giving me for free, what hotel room am I staying in. You definitely have to think about the approach to them much differently than you do traditional journalists, because they're definitely going to ask for more.
Absolutely. So is this not an expert, amazing panel when it comes to influencer marketing? Amazing takeaways, and thank you all for joining me today. Really appreciate it. And if you have private questions, come up and ask us. But thanks all for being here, and I love
you.
SuperNova South. So.